St. John's Church School in New York. This school is located on the west coast of the famous Manhattan Island, adjacent to the Hudson River, and is commonly known as Hell's Kitchen. Although the prosperity of Manhattan is well known to the world, it is called Hell's Kitchen, and you can tell from the name that it is not a good place. Walking through the narrow road, pushing open the rusty iron door, looking at the mottled walls and many old furnishings inside, everything in front of you tells outsiders that although this church school has a high-sounding name, it is actually not even ranked in the top 100 in the local area, let alone the country. Against the backdrop of the dilapidated environment, the only bright spot of this school is that the tuition is relatively cheap. There is a trade-off. The tuition is cheap, but there are many theological courses. Whether you like it or not, you will be strong and fearless. You will forget your suffering and be brighter than the noonday. Although there is darkness, it will be like the morning. Amen. The old teacher ended today's lecture with the same tone that he has used for decades. The students immediately stood up and replied with long, rhythmic amen. It was not until the old teacher opened the door and walked away that the not so large classroom regained its vitality. The warm sunlight shone through the gaps in the windows. The students gathered in groups of 3 or 2, talking about something. They intentionally or unintentionally isolated a corner in the southeast of the classroom. The quietness here formed a sharp contrast with the surrounding noise. The broken light shines on her flaxen hair, her nose is high, and her mixed Chinese and Western ancestry makes her facial features more three-dimensional. The most eye-catching thing is her slightly upturned big eyes, and the pale amber pupils instantly remind people of words such as wildness and pride. Sky. Let's go eat. In the cold ice, only a lively black girl greeted her in a friendly manner. The mixed race beauty sighed helplessly. I've told you 3 times that the name Sky is for those foster families to apply for government subsidies. I'm going to return to my real name, Daisy Johnson. Remember? Repeat it. The black girl was used to being bullied by her, so she repeated it twice before she let her go. The beauty named Daisy also quickly walked out of the classroom. She was going to use the library's network to look up some information. It took a week for her to change from a man who was a failed writer to a woman who sat in the corner of the classroom and sang hymns with others. She remembered that she sorted out a lot of American comics materials and was ready to sleep for a while, but she ended up here. She was not used to all kinds of things, such as dressing, sleeping, language, and eating. Fortunately, the students had been isolating her, so even if she was a little abnormal, she was not discovered. After the time travel, the 3 elements, time, place, and characters, have been investigated. The time is July 2006, and the place is naturally New York. Although it is a bit embarrassing for a man to become a woman, she didn't turn into a lizard or a tree, and she wasn't thrown into ancient times. The result is acceptable, but there is something wrong with this world. This is a world with Captain America and Stark Enterprises. This is the Marvel world. It takes time to investigate the character. As the saying goes, 30 is determined by fate, 70 is determined by hard work, and the remaining 90 is given by parents. This is absolutely true in the Marvel world. Having a good origin and good bloodline is more important than anything else, at least for most people. As a former American comic writer, after consulting countless materials and understanding all the links thoroughly, she died and came to this world with her memories. She realized at the first moment of crossing that her body might have a supernatural bloodline. Daisy Johnson, codenamed Shockwave, had very clear memories. But was the body she was wearing actually that Daisy? She spent 3 days looking through various materials to prove that she was herself. Luckily, she found an old note with her name clearly written on it, Daisy Johnson. However, her predecessor had always been resistant to this name, and as a joke, she gave herself the name Sky, without even a last name. Her real name is Daisy, and her former name is Sky. She is of mixed blood. Although both parents of this body are alive, her current family status is an orphan. After screening and comparing several aspects, she is indeed Quake. In the crisis-ridden Marvel world, having superpowers and not having superpowers are two different concepts. However, her superpowers are not triggered by age or emotional stimulation, but require an alien technology product to guide that part of the gene to manifest. Her bloodline comes from the Kree Empire, one of the 3 rogue empires in the universe. The Kree needed a lot of cannon fodder in the early wars, so they used genetic technology to transform some Earthlings as their own soldiers. Later, these Earthlings broke away from control and called themselves Inhumans. Daisy's bloodline comes from Inhumans. Normally, she is no different from ordinary people, but only after being activated by a crystal called Terrigen can she have superpowers. The crystals were produced in the Inhuman city, Oslan, which should be on the back of the moon. Landing on the moon. This is an impossible task for Daisy, who only has $1,500 in savings. If she can easily land on the moon, what is the need for crystals and superpowers? Fortunately, there is always a way out. One crystal was left on the Earth and eventually fell into the hands of SHIELD. Which is easier, the moon or SHIELD? She thinks the latter. Living in a dangerous world, she needs strength, so she suppresses her fear and plans an action. Her predecessor has no combat-related abilities except for an anti-wolf electric shock device, but she has good hacking skills, and has mastered a lot of bots and servers. This ability is completely inherited by Daisy, and it is the only means she can use at present. 3 days later, everything was ready. She quickly logged into the broiler and prepared layers of disguise. Then she dialed the target's phone through the internet. Jasper Silvert was his target. This bald, bespectacled Indian man was a UN staff member on the surface, but in reality he was the head of the SHIELD administration department, who was responsible for recruiting new employees. In secret, he was a middle-level cadre of Hydra. The Terrigen crystals Daisy needed were stored in a special warehouse of SHIELD, and this bald guy was her important helper. As a hacker with good skills, it was not difficult to find the bald guy's secret phone number. Daisy sorted out the whole process in her mind and finally confirmed that it was correct. She opened her second-hand notebook and found the location of Silvet according to the location of the mobile phone. When he walked to a public place, she hacked several nearby cameras and aimed them at the observable position before calling him. Silvet was a little confused. Not many people knew his private number, and he didn't recognize the person calling him. He looked around cautiously, hesitated for a moment, and answered the call. Daisy turned on the voice changer she had prepared in advance, and her voice became a deep male voice. "Agent Silvet, Mr. Whitehall needs your help with something," she said straight to the point. "Who are you?" "I don't know any Whitehall. You've got the wrong person." Wearing large-rimmed glasses and a well-tailored suit, he looked like a successful person. Although Silvet was doing administrative work, he was still an agent after all. He lacked the necessary vigilance and rejected Daisy without even thinking about it. Daisy had expected this. She said as if she was reciting information. In 1945, in Austria, after Mr. Whitehall was arrested, the oboist he had studied for his entire life fell into the hands of SHIELD. "Mr. Whitehall needs you to use your authority to take the oboist out of SHIELD's confidential warehouse. Inside the oboist is the Terrigen crystal, but it can only be opened in a special place. Hydra and SHIELD, who are unaware of the truth, have studied it for 50 years, but have gained nothing, and now it has been completely shelved." Oboist. Silvert really didn't know about it, but he had confirmed the other party's identity. The other party was a member of Hydra. Even if his estimate was wrong, he was someone connected to Whitehall. Mr. Whitehall owes you a favor. I'll call you back later. Long live Hydra. Daisy hung up the phone and quickly cleared the internet traces. Sylvette stood at attention reflexively and replied to the phone softly, Long live Hydra. After he finished speaking, he found that the other party had hung up. As an Indian who can be a middle-level cadre of both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra, Bald Brother is not lacking in vision and wisdom. He is a rare exception among the loyal Hydra personnel who take poison when caught. He was threatened by Captain America once in the original time and space, and he told everything he knew, with a frighteningly low moral integrity. Unlike the Hydra top brass who want to conquer the world, the middle brass who are dissatisfied with the political status of the agents, and the bottom brass who have been fooled and brainwashed, he is afraid of death and has a serious speculative mentality. This is the information analyzed by Daisy. There are mixed factions within Hydra. Citro is a direct descendant of Alexander Pierce, the former director of S.H.I.E.L.D. They belong to different factions from Whitehall mentioned by Daisy. As a small pawn under the boss, he must have a sense of crisis, especially since his identity is not visible. As a smart man, he will not change his faction, but having another way out is still very important to him. In the next few days, Daisy has been secretly observing and tracking his cell phone signal, and roughly delineated a range of action. Through clues on the internet, she judged that Bald Brother was indeed searching for the oboist. As for whether he would notify his boss, former Director Pierce, Daisy felt that there was a 70% chance that he would not. The bosses called each other to finally solve the problem, and the favor became the boss's, and had nothing to do with him. It was a stupid thing no matter how you looked at it. As a not-so-competent double agent, Bald Brother also has ambitions. Daisy's roommate, the black girl Angela, felt that she was acting strange recently. Today, she seemed to have seen something and ran out quickly. 3 minutes ago, Daisy observed that Sylvette's cell phone signal left a certain shielded area. She had a feeling, well, a woman's intuition, that the other party had gained something. Avoiding her roommate and making a good cover, she called the other party. You're quick, Agent Sylvette. She praised the other party first. This time, she couldn't see the live broadcast, but she could hear the other party's pride from his tone. The bald man said proudly, the reading and transfer of the obelisk requires level 10 authority. Daisy sneered. If it wasn't for level 10 authority, would I still contact you? The other party had already tacitly accepted her identity as Hydra. He was asking for credit. Raising his tone twice, Hydra does not value gentleness, courtesy, frugality and modesty. Being soft and timid will easily arouse suspicion. This task is not difficult. There are hundreds of unknown objects of unknown use. It shouldn't be difficult for you to borrow Minister Pierce's authority. Hearing the name Pierce from her mouth, Sylvette was more certain of her identity. She might be a quasi-high-level official, and her tone suddenly became a little flattering. Yes, sir. How can I hand over the obelisk to you? May I have the honor to meet Mr. Whitehall? Daisy laughed eerily through the voice changer, and she changed to the formal address Jasper Sitwell. Do you really want to meet Mr. Whitehall? In order to deepen the other party's impression, she continued, you have checked the history of the obelisk. Do you know what happened to those who came into contact with the obelisk? How many researchers of S.H.I.E.L.D. have turned into stone because of this? After a while, she asked back, are you sure you want to take the obelisk to see Mr. Whitehall? You know, he has been imprisoned for so many years, and his emotions have not been stable. Her words were evasive, leaving a lot of blanks for the other party to fill in. The first thing Bald Brother thought of was the scene where Whitehall tried to pick up the obelisk by himself. Treating his subordinates as tools was the consistent policy of Hydra, and it was not new at all. So many people tried to pick up this unknown metal, and they all turned into stone without exception. Citro did not think he was the accident. Between his own life and wealth, he automatically chose life. At the same time, he imagined that the guy on the other end of the phone wanted to take credit for his contribution to the incident, and would not even mention him in front of Whitehall in the end. It was insidious and cunning, very Hydra. Thinking that he had seen through the other party's true face, his tone was not so respectful. The credit is all yours. What can I get from this incident? Safety guarantee, steady promotion, and a way out at critical moments. You don't think that Minister Pierce is the only one in S.H.I.E.L.D., do you? You know, S.H.I.E.L.D. is an important asset of Hydra. Anyway, Daisy remembered that Bald Brother could live for several more years, so she could write a blank check at will. She continued to persuade him, "We can mobilize some resources to help you get promoted. It's safer to walk on two legs." The vain and cowardly bald man finally accepted this statement. The call was quickly hung up, and Daisy asked the other party to put the things in the trash can she designated, and hired a homeless man to take the things away after the other party left. In the alley, Daisy, wearing a hood, knocked the homeless man unconscious with an electric shock device. She took a quick look and found that it was a rectangular metal box with the cover number SSR084. It was unknown whether there was a tracker on the box, so she put on gloves and pried open the box. Inside the box was a polygonal metal obelisk more than 30 centimeters high, which looked a bit like the Hercules cup from a distance. Time was tight and there was no time to take a closer look, so she grabbed the obelisk with pliers and put it in her backpack, then ran into a chemical plant with the box and threw the metal box into the sulfuric acid pool. No matter how powerful the agents were, they couldn't find the box. As for the obelisk, there was no need to worry. This piece of technological equipment inherited from the Kree people had a seamless appearance. It could disable electronic devices and turn non-inhuman intelligent life into stone. With the current level of technology on Earth, it was not possible to install a tracker. Under the cover of night, Daisy cleared the nearby cameras that had captured her, then hailed a taxi and left the scene. Daisy ran back to the rental house and lay on her bed, looking exhausted. Playing tricks on an agent was an experience that neither the former professional writer nor the little hacker had ever experienced. At that time, the adrenaline surged, but now it was just a fear. After the relaxation, she was exhausted all over. Looking at her reflection in the mirror, she couldn't help but sigh. She was obviously a beautiful girl with a score of 80 or above, but she was unkempt after these few days. Now she is probably only 60 points. God knows, she really didn't know how to dress up. There wasn't much in Daisy's memory to refer to. Other travelers were awakened by slaps, by pretty maids, or by shouts of killing. But she was not awakened by the fragrance of her own body. Daisy was an orphan. She left the orphanage at the age of 10 and went through 4 foster families in a row. The foster families provided her with a government subsidy every month, and the foster families paid her tuition. Both parties took what they needed, and their relationship was as cold as strangers. Daisy was poor and had saved for years before she bought a second-hand laptop. She had no money left to buy anything new, and the church school had strict controls on perfume. The indisputable fact was that the smell that woke her up was body odor. Fortunately, the scent was not strong, and her nose gradually got used to it. Daisy faced huge pressure to survive. She had to ensure her survival first, and then she could think about those trivial matters later. The most difficult step was completed, and the obelisk was obtained. The only person who knew about it, Bald Singe, also went home to wait for a promotion, salary increase, and marry a beautiful and rich woman. After taking a sip of water and calming down, he opened his backpack and found the obelisk lying quietly in the backpack. Without inhuman blood, the obelisk would turn any intelligent life that touched it into stone. Daisy knew it was time to test whether she was an inhuman or not. Although she thought she was more than 50 sure, what if she wasn't? Turning into stone was not her goal. She took out a knife and held it in her hand, ready to cut off her little finger once it started to petrify. She took out a towel and stuffed it in her mouth to prevent herself from shouting, "I can do it. It shouldn't be wrong." She kept encouraging herself, and after 10 minutes, she finally made up her mind. The little finger of her left hand trembled and stretched towards the obelisk, 10 centimeters, 5 centimeters, 1 centimeter. The finger and the obelisk were just a little bit away from touching. She hardened her heart and pressed her fingers hard. Her eyes were wide open, staring at the obelisk and her fingers without blinking. The obelisk was not petrified, but it seemed to be warm. Still worried, she grabbed it with her whole left hand. The obelisk remained the same, and she herself did not change at all. "I told you I could do it." She was so excited that she was afraid of disturbing her roommate, so she lay on the pillow and was very happy for a long time. Touching his chest, it took him a long time to calm down. After confirming his true bloodline and obtaining the obelisk, he needed to undergo a ritual to activate his superpowers. The ancient supernatural beings had very strict selection criteria for their own kind. They believed that only those with the best genes could obtain superpowers. The better the genes, the stronger the ability. At the same time, depending on the strength of the ability, some of the original genes would be damaged. What genetic defects did the Quake of the original time and space have? She really couldn't see it, and comforted herself that maybe her genes were stronger. Tony Stark is still selling his Jellicle missiles. It's at least 4 years away from the TV series where Quake placed the obelisk in the underground city of Puerto Rico. She has advanced her life trajectory. The consequence of not following the original script is that she is now alone, without a single helper. It's enough to pull the tiger skin and pull the banner once, but I don't want to compete with those agents again. She needs to take the obelisk with her and go to Puerto Rico alone to find this underground city and open her bloodline. It is not reliable to go to Puerto Rico thousands of miles away with an anti-off electric shock device. Her gentle and heroic appearance does not fit the aesthetic standards here, and her inability to dress up is a minus point, but she has to be on guard, as there are drunkards and racists everywhere. Although Puerto Rico has been clamoring to become the 51st state of the United States, the locals are extremely poor and public security is not guaranteed. She must have self-defense skills, and guns became her primary goal. After counting her savings, she only had $900 left to fool Bold Brother these days, so she temporarily gave up her plan to travel far. No matter what she did, she had to make some money. Daisy had good hacking skills, but the golden age of hackers had passed. It was a death wish to tamper with the bank system. Fortunately, she was also good at programming. One day later, she took a private job to help a company design a database entry system. She attended classes during the day and worked late into the night as a programmer, a job with no future. After 7 days of hard work and earning $3,000, Daisy went to the gun store to look around. Rifles, hunting rifles, and shotguns were relatively easy to buy. These guns were adjusted to semi-automatic mode, and the magazine capacity was also reduced accordingly. You could buy them with an ID. Because they were easy to carry, the pistols she was more interested in had stricter purchase requirements, and she needed to apply in advance and wait for approval. New York law allows people age 18 to own long guns, and the age for purchasing handguns is 21. Daisy is only 18 years old this year, so it is impossible for her to carry a rifle to Puerto Rico. Moreover, guns are not allowed on planes or boats. There is no space ring in the time travel benefits. Even if she bought one here, she can't bring it with her. She can only find a way to get it locally. It is difficult to buy a gun, but it is not difficult to practice with a gun. All major chain gun stores have places to practice with guns, and there are more professional gun halls that provide on-stop services from gun selection to teaching to mastering. Of course, customers only need to prepare money and a not a stupid brain. I found a larger chain gun store, showed my identity information, filled out a form, and finally rented a pistol, bought 2 boxes of bullets, 2 target papers, and rented a gun track. The pistol rental cost $10, the bullets cost $32, the target paper cost $1, and the gun track rental cost $18. Finally, after a little hesitation, he hired a professional coach who paid $68 per hour. He made full use of his spare time and practiced for half a month. It must be said that there is a reason why Shockwave can become the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the future. Her physical fitness is a little better than that of ordinary people. Her eyesight is a little better. Her reaction is a little faster, and her advantages in all aspects are accumulated. Her starting point is higher than that of ordinary people, and this is without taking into account the premise of superpowers and superhuman physical enhancement. The practice cost a total of $300, but the idea was that it was a waste of bullets. She couldn't say that she could hit the target every time, but she felt that it was enough to deal with ordinary people. She found a small factory and borrowed their X-ray equipment. It must be said that the obelisk was very powerful. It didn't show up at all under the X-ray, just like a ball of air. Daisy was completely relieved. She changed into a travel outfit, carried a backpack, a baseball cap and sunglasses, and said goodbye to her roommate. She asked for leave from school because she wanted to visit her lost parents. The school happily gave her a month's vacation. After flying for 4 hours, the plane finally landed at the Puerto Rico San Juan International Airport. She first looked for a place to stay. This Caribbean island country mainly speaks Spanish, but in order to embrace her American father, English is also the official language. Daisy quickly stayed in a local hotel that is known as the safest. After breakfast, Daisy expressed her concerns about local security to the hotel waiter during a casual chat, and the waiter recommended her a gun store. She spent $1,100 and took away 2 Glock 18s and 2 boxes of bullets. The guns were easy to carry. She put one on her waist and hid one in her backpack. In theory, she could deal with general troubles. In the next few days, she began to hunt local legends, stories, libraries, and online forums, looking for clues about ancient cities. She went to the San Juan police station for 3 consecutive days. According to her, she saw on the internet that a couple lost a girl here 18 years ago, and she came to find her biological parents according to the clues. The police looked at her American passport with a high eye and cooperated with them for 3 days. The search for parents was a cover-up. Daisy still needed to pretend to come to Puerto Rico openly, more to implant a Trojan horse in the police system. She found the architectural layout of Old San Juan from the police database. She was not an architect, so she could not see any abnormalities in many places. However, she managed to find a few key points by guessing with her memory. Originally, Old San Juan was called San Cristobal, a strong fortress built by the Spanish to control the Caribbean Sea. It made a lot of contributions to resisting the invasion of the Dutch, English, and Americans for a long time. It can be confirmed that the ancient city of the Inhumans is deep underground in the castle. At this point, the information gathering of the big organizations is halfway done. After that, they need to clear the area and use large machinery to dig deep. I remember that S.H.I.E.L.D. used a high-speed cutting machine, and Hydra was even more powerful. They set up a plasma drill, but poor Daisy, let alone helpers, she didn't even have a shovel. As for going to the store to buy a shovel and dig a hole by herself, playing the guest role of the European and American version of Ghost blows out the light. No matter how you think about it, it's not reliable. The hard-digging method is not suitable for her. Daisy dived into the San Juan library and searched through various documents. It must be said that pressure is motivation. Her Spanish level improved by leaps and bounds while looking up materials. Although she spoke haltingly, she had no major obstacles in reading and writing. In the local folklore, she saw a piece of news that sounded like an urban legend. It was said that there was a sentry tower on the north side of the castle, near the sea. For a long time, no one dared to go there to guard. There were 11 soldiers who were recorded missing. Local legend said that there was an ancient demon under the tower. Daisy was a little scared. That was a demon. Are there demons in the Marvel world? She knew there were, but they shouldn't be here. The document recorded that the soldiers were not seen alive or dead, which means that there is a passage directly connected to the underground city. The soldiers did not have alien blood, so they would never return. It must be said that this strange story is good news for her who is alone. Puerto Rico is very hot in August. San Juan is not a big city, and the streets are very narrow. The imagined scene of gunfire on the road was not seen. The locals were very peaceful. They set up umbrellas and sold some items on the roadside casually. No one cared. Daisy went shopping. She prepared some ropes, daggers, and a few glow sticks. She remembered that the underground city had a special magnetic field that could stop all electronic devices, so many things were useless. But she still brought a flashlight. Flashlights were still useful in the early stages and could be used as disposable items. She also bought some compressed food and water. The TV show showed that the journey was completed in 40 minutes, so it was hard to judge how long it would actually take. After all, it was an underground city, and it would take a long time to walk on foot. Thinking of the painful experience during military training, she bought a large bag of sanitary napkins. This thing can be used as insoles, and now she can also use it by herself. In short, it is a necessary item. The existing urban architectural maps are of little help for the underground city, but Daisy still hand-drew one to carry with her, and left her notebook and mobile phone in the hotel. Daisy put on a beige shirt over her tank top, rolled up her sleeves, and wore jeans, sneakers, a mechanical watch on her wrist, and a jacket in her backpack. She looked very hot in this outfit. But she thought it must be very cold and dirty in the dungeon, so it would always be a good idea to prepare more. After eating and drinking, she was ready. On a sunny afternoon, she took the obelisk and sneaked into the watchtower where the devil was said to be entrenched. She had no anti-detection ability, and there was no difference between day and night. If someone followed her during the day, they might be able to find her. She turned briskly onto the small road. The watchtower had been abandoned and no one cared about it. It didn't even have a decent gate. The interior was dusty and cool, so she hurriedly put on her jacket. She searched intently. It didn't take long before she found a hole filled with weeds. After confirming that there was oxygen below, she slowly walked down the stone steps with her pistol in hand. This was a wine cellar. Presumably, the soldiers stationed there back then didn't want to be lonely, so they dug a hole in the ground to drink here and usually stored the wine there. She knocked on the floor tiles and the wall in turn, and finally found a deep hole under the west wall. Presumably, the last guard blocked the gap, but the bricks were blocked very casually, and she opened the hole with a few hits. Daisy had read some Tom Robin novels, so she stood outside and waited for a while, then stretched out her hand to sense it, and there was air flowing slowly between her fingers, and a faint breeze could be felt. She put her long hair into a ponytail, put the flashlight into her miner's hat, and carefully climbed down the passage. The passage was dogged by the guards of the sentry tower. It was not difficult to guess what they were thinking. They probably thought there was treasure or something underneath. The passage was very narrow. Daisy crawled for an hour in a very non-standard crawling posture. In one word, she was exhausted. Survival in the wild is not very friendly to women. She should buy a sports vest instead of wearing a daily bra. Crawling for an hour, the taste of it is really indescribable. Fortunately, this passage is not long. After passing a slope, the view suddenly opens up. A deeper and smoother downhill slope appears in front of us. As expected, the flashlight went out. Daisy, who was covered in dust, knew that she had entered the ancient underground city. Facing the dark passage, she felt a silent fear, and a little joy in it. She didn't use the fluorescent stick, but reached out and grabbed the obelisk. The surface of the obelisk, which was originally as smooth as a mirror, showed many orange-red stripes. After studying the layout of San Juan for a few days, she saw at a glance that the surface of the obelisk was a map. The stripes finally converged to one point, which was her destination. The obelisk was still glowing, sending a signal to Daisy to follow its guidance. This feeling came out of nowhere, but with the weak illumination of the obelisk, she could see the surroundings clearly. There were 7 or 8 corpses lying not far from her feet. They were controlled the moment they entered the edge of the city and eventually died here. There are more dead bones at the end of the site. Looking at the clothes, there are Spanish soldiers, indigenous people, and some small animals. Identifying the direction, I began to walk deep into the city following the guidance of the obelisk. This underground city, from the inside to the outside, seems to be composed of many concentric circles, and the center of the circle is my goal. Daisy walked for an hour and felt that even if I was a person with poor directions, I would not get lost. I just had to walk along the straight road. But she did not relax her vigilance. She followed the TV and drew an arrow on the ground every time she passed the intersection of an arc and a straight line, indicating her direction of travel. In the empty passage, there was only the sound of her footsteps. In order to keep herself focused at all times, Daisy stopped every 2 hours to rest, drink water, and recover her strength. Just like that, she walked down the sentry tower at noon, and now the mechanical watch showed that it was already 8 o'clock in the evening. She just felt that she had been walking all the time. She sat on the ground and ate compressed biscuits. After taking 2 bites, she threw them back into her backpack. She couldn't eat it anymore. It was too dry. She didn't want to consume too much water, so she had to use it carefully. After all, Shockwave Girl was not a Superman. After gaining superpowers, she had to return the same way. She closed her eyes slightly to ease her tense nerves. She found that as long as she held the obelisk tightly, she would recover some of her strength. Although it was not much, it was precious in this ghost place. She gritted her teeth, stood up, and continued to walk in. Even though she didn't see a ghost along the way, she still held the pistol tightly. This was her only way to save her life. At 12 o'clock that night, she still had enough energy, but she was exhausted. Daisy had to end her trip today. After solving her personal problems, she sat down with her back against the wall, put her backpack on her chest, held the obelisk in her hand, kept her body warm, closed her eyes and fell asleep. This silent and dark underground city that had not been inhabited for thousands of years was not a good place to sleep. There was no comfortable big bed, no pillows or quilts, and she curled up like a refugee. She was sometimes conscious and sometimes confused. She was half asleep and half asleep. Sometimes she dreamed that her new book was a terrible failure, and sometimes she dreamed that she was knocked to the ground by Thanos, with blood all over the ground. She slept for 3 hours on and off, and when she woke up, she found that she was bleeding, but it had nothing to do with Thanos. It was purely her own problem. With a face full of embarrassment and confusion, Daisy cleaned herself up with the memory of her previous life. She couldn't sleep and decided to continue walking towards the city center. Oh my God! We are finally here. Daisy was disheveled at this time. Not to mention a 60-point beauty. If it weren't for her long hair, it would be hard to tell her gender. After stumbling for 3 days, she finally arrived at the center of the city. 6 tall stone doors were distributed in a circle, 2 meters apart, supporting the inner stone chamber. There was a 1-meter-high stone platform in the center. Daisy looked at the top. She didn't know how the structure here was designed. A beam of not-so-strong light fell on the stone platform after several refractions. Rubbing her stiff cheeks, Daisy first observed the surrounding environment. In her memory, once the ritual began, the stone doors around would automatically close, forming a sealed environment. The obelisk began to shed its metal shell, revealing the Terrigen crystal inside and spreading a mist. She was now worried that once the evolution was complete, these stone doors would open automatically, and would not be closed forever. After a long time of careful study, the result of the study was nothing. There was no mechanical transmission and no power supply. She really couldn't see that these stone doors would move by themselves after the ceremony began. Being a woman, you have to be a little bit cruel to yourself. Don't think about things you don't understand in advance. With superpowers, you are not afraid even if the stone door is completely closed. Those who have evolved useless abilities need to worry, but there is no need for you, a great shockwave girl, to worry. She took out the last 2 bottles of water, poured some into her palms, and wiped it on her face, looking more energetic. Daisy placed the obelisk in the center of the stone platform, stepped back 2 steps, and waited for the ceremony to begin. With a booming sound, the 6 stone doors began to move slowly along a predetermined trajectory. After 3 minutes, they were fitted together, and the indoor area was reduced by half. The sealed environment was completed. The obelisk absorbed the light from above and began to rotate with the stone platform in her excited eyes. With a crisp click sound, the metal skin of the obelisk fell off, revealing the light blue crystals inside. The crystals seemed to be alive, automatically sprouting many branches. It only took 10 seconds for a single crystal to become a crystal cluster. Daisy was so nervous watching the crystals grow wildly, veins popping out on the back of her hands, her nose twitching slightly, and she stared at the crystal cluster without blinking. In the original time and space, another alien split half of the crystal energy, and then a kind person broke the evolution crystal. It can be said that the Shockwave Girl was far from reaching the peak she should have. Now that she has this evolution all to herself, everything will be different. Daisy waited silently. After a short while, the stone platform stopped rotating, the crystal clusters grew wildly and calmed down. There was silence all around, and nothing unusual was seen. Is this the end? She was a little bit unbelievable. She took a step forward, and something strange happened. The light in the stone room was a little dim, and Daisy couldn't see clearly. She vaguely saw that the crystals seemed to be emitting a gas from the inside. The gas fermented rapidly in this sealed environment, and there was a sour smell. The air was a bit filthy. Daisy was sure that the PM 2.5 here was off the charts. She didn't know if it was harmful to the lungs if inhaled. As she was thinking about it, she felt her body go numb. When she looked down, she saw that her fingers and wrists were turning into stone. If she didn't know the truth, she would have been scared to death. In fact, she was not in a good condition at this time. Her body became more and more stiff, and the black and gray stone objects climbed up her body quickly. Calm down, It's okay. This is all routine. She tried to cheer herself up. Her mind was blank, and she petrified very quickly. She lost her perception of the outside world and turned into a stone statue completely. The ritual did not stop, and the crystal was still emitting mist. In this sealed environment, the mist had nowhere to go, and most of it was finally sucked into Daisy's body. Until the crystal ran out of energy, it evaporated in the air in an unscientific way, and the stone chamber fell into silence. Boom! Boom! After an unknown amount of time, a barely perceptible heartbeat sound came from the stone statue, becoming clearer and clearer. Crash, crash! The stone statue began to break, starting with the fingers. After several days of fatigue, the fingers that were originally stained became white again, with a faint luster. The cracks grew larger and larger, from fingers to palms, arms, and even to cheeks. Daisy felt that the whole world had changed in her perception, but she was not sure where the change was. There was something more in her body, but all of this was blocked by a layer of uncomfortable stone skin. Ah! She shouted, and a force burst out of her cells. This force was like a long-accumulated flood. Once mobilized, it was full and irresistible, like a thunderclap on the ground, and the stone skin exploded from the inside out. The stone skin was blown away, and it was like being reborn. Her clothes were still on her body, and nothing unpleasant had happened. Daisy didn't care whether the polluted air here would give her pneumoconiosis. She felt her whole body, and her facial features were all there. Her hands and feet were all intact. The defects of the aliens that she had been worried about did not happen to her. Maybe this defect is hidden deep. She consoled herself. Relaxed and comfortable, as if she had taken off a heavy burden of dozens of kilograms. She clenched her fists and felt her current strength. Not to mention that it was stronger than her previous female body. It was even stronger than her previous male body. Her figure was still slender, no different from before. But a new vitality was reflected from her cells, which greatly increased her speed, reaction, and endurance. Her power-generating methods and techniques were still immature, but her physical fitness was no worse than those warriors who had undergone rigorous training. This process took only 10 minutes. The Terrigen crystal mist had brought about earth-shaking changes to her. From cells to internal organs, blood, lymph, bones, her entire body was rejuvenated. Physical enhancement can only be said to be incidental, and superpowers are the key. Daisy carefully experienced her superpowers. This bloodline activation ceremony was similar to what she expected. The stone door did not open automatically. Perhaps there was a switch somewhere outside, but she was alone now and could only open a passage from the inside. Reality is not a game. When you gain superpowers, an icon will not appear automatically, and you can activate your abilities by pressing a certain key. Superpowers provide a possibility, and it depends on yourself to what extent you can use them. In theory, ordinary people can do all the events in the Olympics, but how many people can actually do it? Few people can complete them without training. Superpowers also need to be studied, developed, and trained to become a unique skill. Daisy carefully felt the abnormality in her body, which was her vibration power. It was not a stream of energy, and it would not stay in the upper, middle, or lower dantian. Just like a normal body can run, jump, and walk, now there is an additional mode. She can make objects vibrate. Following the mark, she found the direction she came in from, and she reached out to touch the boulder in front of her. She didn't know if she could shake open the half-magnetic stone door. The force was too small to get out, and the force was too large. Daisy was afraid that the entire underground city would collapse. But the first attempt failed. The stone door didn't move at all. Her vibration was retracted by itself before it entered the stone door. This was not her subjective ability to put away, but some kind of subconsciousness at work. Try again. She stretched out her hand and started vibrating again. Daisy tried to recall her little knowledge of physics. She remembered that objects have their own vibration frequency. As long as she found this frequency, she could destroy the stone door. After searching and searching, she finally found the frequency of the stone door. She adjusted herself to achieve resonance. After just 2 vibrations, she felt sore all over. This ability was a bit like a double-edged sword, hurting both the enemy and herself. However, the perseverance in her character prevailed, suppressing the discomfort and trying to adjust the frequency. Crack and crack sounds rang out, and she hurriedly stopped. The vibration area was a bit large, and the entire stone door was included in the vibration range. Daisy was not sure whether the fall of this door would cause a chain reaction. In case the other 5 stone doors were affected and the temple collapsed, she could prepare for the next time she crossed. After studying the cracks on the stone door, she found the most damaged area and started the third vibration. This time, she limited the vibration area to a very small area. Although the precision requirements were higher, the bad vibration burden on the body was also reduced. Hold on, go slower. Narrow the area, and be gentler. She kept encouraging herself. With a muffled bang, the stone door shattered by 1/3. Daisy didn't care how much damage the dust would cause to her body, and rushed out quickly. After checking the marks on the ground, she ran back quickly. The journey back was naturally dark without the obelisk to provide lighting. However, her 5 senses were strengthened, and she could vaguely see some paths in the dark. The enhanced hearing and sense of direction could ensure that she maintained a straight line while running. Most women have a weaker sense of direction, but now this shortcoming has been made up. Although her sense of direction is not as exaggerated as Daredevil's, it is enough in this 3-meter wide and 2-meter high passage. She walks briskly and runs vigorously, as if she is full of strength. Even without professional running training, Daisy believes that her current speed is not inferior to those of professional athletes. Moreover, she had more endurance and explosive power than athletes. In order to reduce the weight and increase the speed, she threw away all the useless supplies. Daisy was afraid that the underground city would collapse in the next second, or that seawater would flow back, or that a self-destruct device would be activated. She was not scaring herself, but there were too many similar scenes in the movie. She did not dare to stop for a moment. Relying on her sufficient physical strength and tenacious character, she ran for a day instead of walking for 3 days, and returned to the sentry tower along the original route. Sure enough, movies are all lies. She sat on the ground, panting and complaining. The sentry tower was still very dirty, so she didn't stay for long. She packed her backpack, changed into summer clothes to make herself look less different, and walked out slowly. Back at the hotel, she took a hot bath, put on a bathrobe, and put her hair up. Daisy looked at her face in the mirror. Her eyes were bright and stubborn, her nose was high, and her skin was a little more delicate. You know, Europeans and Americans have always had bad skin, but now her blood seems to have pushed her one step towards the Oriental side. Her legs grew a centimeter longer. Daisy was 1.7 meters tall before, but now she is 1.71 meters tall. She returned to her bedroom, took out her notebook, and searched the local information. She didn't find any negative news about herself, only that the San Juan Police Department had sent an internal communication to help her find her lost parents. Daisy lay on the bed and began to think about her future. The profession of hacker was removed immediately, and Daisy in the original time and space did not develop any results. The golden age of hackers has passed, and relying on single-handedly to be a network thief is simply courting death. What's more, the most important thing for a hacker is not only technology but also ideas. She is not her predecessor and does not have this idea. If she imitates others, there will be no good end. The vibration ability is her foundation. On the way back, she ran and studied at the same time. The vibration ability was added to the soles of her feet, so that she could run in a hopping manner. It looked a little funny, but the speed was indeed much faster. And as she continued to run, from unfamiliar to proficient, her fine control of the ability was also gradually strengthened. But she was scratching her head when it came to more applications. She was a poor student before, and she had long since given her science knowledge back to the teachers in the indescribable country. Not to mention the original Daisy, who recited the Old and New Testaments and sang hymns every day. Although the church school did not hate modern physics as much as Darwin, it had very few courses. Just like that time and space were often occupied by physical education classes, Daisy often saw this familiar scene in her memory. The physics teacher asked for leave, and the theology teacher walked into the classroom and led everyone to read the Bible. In the face of vibration, frequency, transverse wave, string vibration and other things that are unknown and powerful, it can be said that both her past and present are confused. The relevant knowledge of the two of them combined is not as good as that of a diligent and studious junior high school student. If you learn math, physics and chemistry well, you will not be afraid of going anywhere in the world. Daisy finally realized the profound meaning of this sentence. She, a poor student, could only learn again. Fortunately, it is the internet age. As long as you want to learn all kinds of knowledge, as long as it does not involve cutting-edge scientific and technological achievements, you can basically search for it. As for how much you can learn, it depends on the individual. After a quick look at various academic theories, Daisy was confused and prepared to go back to study them carefully. She put away her notebook and lay on the bed. She now had a problem to face, which was her genetic defect. Like the inhuman leader Black Bolt, he could flatten a city with a single word and make Thanos fall with a single roar. His defect was that he had no control. In order not to cause harm, he could only pretend to be dumb 365 days a year. Daisy realized her problem. Her vibrations also hurt herself. The force is mutual. She caused vibrations, and these vibrations would also be fed back to her. Daisy in the original time and space frequently used her abilities, which caused a slight fracture in her arm bone. She even had to take painkillers to maintain her ability. There was no horizontal comparison, but Daisy ran all the way and she felt that she was stronger than her original body. Perhaps this was the benefit of her exclusive possession of the Terrigen crystal mist. In addition, she felt that her control over her abilities was more precise than in the original time and space. Precise control gave her an additional ability. She could sense the vibration frequency of people around her. A scientist named David R. Hawkins did an experiment. He used his own method to make an energy level range for all objects in the world, divided into 1 to 1000. The value of a normal person in this energy level is 200. When a person is full of evil thoughts, indifference, fear, anxiety and other emotions, his vibration frequency will decrease. When a person is optimistic, happy and peaceful, the vibration frequency will increase. Meeting a kind and virtuous person will make people feel comfortable, while evil will make people feel the opposite. This view is scientifically based. This scientific study records that the person with the highest vibration frequency is Mother Teresa, the woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize. Even if you don't have faith, you will feel warm when you see her. From a humanistic perspective, it can be said that it is her personality charm and dedication, but in the field of physics, Mother Teresa's vibration frequency is much higher than that of ordinary people. Daisy can now use this ability to judge the good and evil of the people around her, just like the red and yellow names in the game. Precise control has another benefit, which is to offset the recoil of the gun. Women are naturally not as big as men, and their wrist and arm strength are also different. Many female agents hold guns with both hands, which is the effect of recoil. Daisy can now fire at will, and the vibration ability that offsets the recoil is very light, and it is also a training for the precise control of abilities. Her already high physical fitness, coupled with the greatly improved reaction speed, endurance and ability after the activation of her bloodline, her shooting skills have improved by leaps and bounds. It is difficult to hit the target every time while running, but it is no problem for her to win a place in amateur shooting competitions. The initial stage puts a heavy burden on the body, so she needs to pursue precision and do the most with the least ability. When her physical fitness becomes strong, it will not be difficult for her to make the air vibrate and the sea split like Whitebeard. Or when she understands quantum mechanics, she can open and cut off dimensional channels and touch objects to sense their positions like the DC shock wave next door. All of this can be done. In short, the future is still very bright. The matter in Puerto Rico came to an end. She acted for 2 more days. After the local police said that they would notify her as soon as there was any news about her parents, she boarded the plane. The 2 Glocks were not used, so they were sold to the gun store at a low price. The gun store was very cautious about American passports, and the repurchase price was not too harsh. With a profit of $700, Daisy's savings once again exceeded 4 figures. She returned to New York happily. Although she didn't have any guns, Daisy's mentality was very different when she returned to New York this time. She had superpowers. She could also send out short-range shock waves like she did in the original Time and Space, but she felt that it was a bit low-level and would cause great damage to the body. Apart from looking good, it had no advantages. Facing the yellow names all over the street, she felt safe from the bottom of her heart. Back in the rental house, Angela, a black girl, was studying makeup techniques from a fashion magazine. I have to say that my predecessor had a good eye for choosing this black girl as a best friend. When the 2 of them stood together, Daisy looked like a fairy. Is it the common choice of all women to choose an ugly girl as a best friend? Daisy couldn't help but sigh. Don't put on makeup, that color doesn't suit you. The black girl put on makeup while humming with headphones on, and she didn't even know she came in. Ah, Daisy, you're back. The black girl was very friendly, threw away the brush that Daisy couldn't name, and gave her a big hug. The black girl was really black, not like the color of people who have lived in the United States for generations. She looked like she had just been captured by the Portuguese and brought to the American continent. She was originally black, but she was Daisy's only friend now. Daisy put down her backpack and patted her shoulder. Have those guys bullied you these days? School bullying is inevitable everywhere. Captain America, Spider-Man, Superman and Flash in this world were all bullied by their peers when they were young. The cultural atmosphere here is not against school bullying, and it even encourages it. As minorities, Daisy and Blackie were natural targets of bullying by white kids. Daisy had been fighting against white kids since she was in the orphanage and was very experienced, while Blackie was from an immigrant family and was not used to the place at first. It was Daisy who came to her aid and that led to their friendship. Daisy knew that Blackie would be bullied again after she left for half a month. However, Hey May's words were a little unexpected. She said in a serious tone, No, they are very busy recently. You know, our school is going to be closed. Unlike Daisy, who just muddled through her life, Hey May's parents had plans for her life. The reason they sent her to this remote church school was mainly because they valued the good relationship between the school and Yale University. These famous universities were all related to the church in the early days. Getting good grades or a recommendation from a church school was very helpful in getting into a famous university. Now, everything seems to have some variables. Why is the school closed? Daisy has no love for singing hymns, but this is her only place to stay. At present, when she has not made any future plans, this place is still very important to her. Mei thought for a while and said, I heard that some company is going to buy all the land in Hell's Kitchen and tear it down and rebuild the area. Daisy took out her notebook, connected to the internet, and searched quickly. She soon found the answer. United Construction Company is investing in the acquisition of several nearby properties. She was a little puzzled. Did United Construction Company start planning in Hell's Kitchen so early? The kingpin was behind the United Construction Company. At that time, Kingpin was far from the peak of his life. It was beyond his ability to take over Hell's Kitchen alone, so he joined forces with several parties to form the shell of the United Construction Company. But Daisy clearly remembered that they should have started to acquire land after the Avengers fought the Chitauri, which was still several years away. In the next few days, she returned to school. Everyone was in a panic. The teachers no longer taught seriously, and the students were doing their own thing. The only happy people were the school directors. Kingpin didn't want to provoke a church school that looked bad but actually had a lot of connections, so the compensation for the demolition was generous. Daisy saw with her own eyes Kingpin's assistant, James Wesley, a well-dressed man who managed Kingpin's criminal empire, appear in the school. The school directors were very humble in serving this god of wealth, fearing that they would be neglected. The negotiation progressed very quickly. No matter how unhappy she was, the closure of the school had become a fact. Daisy had two options. One was to make a living on her own, and the other was to find another school to complete her high school courses and then go to college. Daisy was confident, had supernatural powers, lived two lives, and had a perspective from the future, so it was not difficult for her to make some money on her own. But the choice of camp in the future is a problem. Those who are involved in the underworld are excluded at the first time. As a failed author, she is essentially a good person who abides by the law. She is not interested in the trafficking of laundry detergent, organs, and weapons. It is 10 times more difficult for women to establish a vibrant social organization than men. On the premise of not relying on men, if there is a new debutante, she will definitely be the first one to challenge him. It's okay to pretend to be slapped in the face once or twice, but it will be annoying to be slapped every day. I have never heard of any woman making a name for herself in the underworld. This path is not suitable for her. Running a legitimate business requires a lot of rules to be followed. Once it develops to a certain extent, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra will definitely take notice. The former is not bad, but the latter is much more troublesome. In the movie, Hydra has always been lurking inside S.H.I.E.L.D., and it seems that the strength of both sides is about the same. In fact, the Hydra organization is very large, and its structure can be divided into 4 parts. The first is a multinational group that uses legal activities to cover up illegal activities. For example, the Typhon Group has 250,000 employees, and its board of directors is completely controlled by Hydra. Their business scope includes food, medicine, arms, aerospace materials, and other aspects. The second is the government agencies of various countries, such as the Ministry of Finance, the Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI), the National Security Agency (NSA), the Canadian Security Intelligence Service (CSI), etc. Some of these departments are led by important figures or directly led by Hydra. The third is International Criminal Organizations, and AM, which has dealt with Iron Man, is one of them. The fourth is the Intelligence Agency, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is just one of them, just a relatively important asset in the huge Hydra organization. Hydra has hundreds of billions of dollars in assets that can be mobilized at any time, and has trained elite soldiers in bases all over the world, with a total of at least 100,000. Facing such a huge organization, Daisy really doesn't think she has any ability to fight against it. She could only focus on the present. A painful problem was exposed. She was out of money again. It was hard to find the fat sheep like last time. She needed to find some money to spend. The black girl persuaded her to work in the convenience store together. She refused without thinking. What a joke! She, the dignified Quake girl, was going to be a salesperson. If Stark was willing to clean the toilet, she would go to be a salesperson. What to do? She rented a car and drove around Manhattan for a day. She couldn't enter big companies like Stark Industries, Osborne Enterprises, and Rand Corporation, and she didn't want to work in small places. She passed by the famous Central Park and was about to go in for a walk, but there were a lot of police officers setting up cordons at the scene. She watched from a distance for a while and heard the onlookers talking. It seemed that there was a gang shootout and dozens of bodies were carried out at the scene. It was none of her business, so she retreated directly. She opened the car door and saw a man lying in the back seat covered in blood. Her enhanced five senses allowed her to hear the man's very slight breathing. She hurriedly stepped out and prepared to call the police in the distance. Ha! She accidentally sensed it with the vibration frequency and made a surprising discovery. This man was a good man, at least better than most people. He seemed to have integrity, courage, and fearlessness. According to her frequency perception, he seemed to have all these qualities. She took back the words she was about to call for help. There are too few good people in this world. It's rare to see one, so she would help if she could. And the Central Park shooting also made her have some guesses. The other party was still somewhat conscious. When he saw her approaching, he fainted for some reason. Wake up, what's the matter with me fainting? Daisy closed the car door and turned the man over with some effort. The other party was very heavy, and even with her enhanced strength, it was still a bit difficult. In layman's terms, this guy was a big guy. The man looked to be in his 30s, wearing a casual shirt and jeans. He had no weapons, but there were 3 bloody holes in his chest and abdomen, which looked a bit scary. One of them was slightly above the heart. Although he did not die on the spot, his life was about to come to an end. Daisy took out the ID from his trouser pocket and took a look. Frank Custer. This guy. Daisy quickly shut up. It was really him. This guy was the future Punisher. Many people jokingly called him Uncle Punisher. The Central Park shooting caused the tragic death of Frank's family, who originally had a happy family. After that, he took revenge on the gangsters crazily and vowed to find out the real culprit. Daisy didn't expect that she would run into this incident while she was out strolling. Who treated this guy after he was seriously injured? After thinking for a while, she found that she didn't have this information in her memory. Before she could figure out the abnormality, Frank's breathing became weaker and weaker. She sensed his heartbeat. Although she had never studied medicine, Daisy knew that his life was in the countdown. She looked around, but no one came to save Frank. Shouldn't I be the one to save you? That's too weird. Well, you're lucky. She hesitated for a while, and seeing that Frank was about to die, she quickly reached out to his chest and activated her vibration ability. With a very slight force, she injected a trace of energy into the heart, helping it to beat again. Frank sat up suddenly as if by reflex, but his body was too weak and his movements were too large. He sat up 45 degrees and then lay down again. Blood gushed out like it was free. Daisy was speechless. This guy's nerve reflexes were too fast, and her treatment method was a bit overbearing. Seeing Frank faint again, she was at a loss. Calling the hospital was obviously not the best option. The people who targeted Frank were powerful, and it was very likely that he would not be saved and she would be implicated. She could only treat him herself. The former failed writer only had some theoretical knowledge accumulated from reading novels, but the original Daisy had fought with and courage with her white classmates and had basic experience in treatment. The combination of both sides, theory and practice, is perfect. Looking at the ground, there is a faint trace of blood extending from the park to her car, as if she was afraid that the enemy didn't know the target was on her car. Daisy drove out of Central Park quickly and turned into a remote alley. On the way, she bought some gauze, alcohol, needles and thread, and then used a notebook to check the basic treatment steps and began on-site treatment. Alcohol disinfection, then recoil to eject the bullet, suture the wound. The speed is no less than the most skilled surgeon. The speed is fast enough, but the skills are really poor, and in the end, Frank is wrapped up in gauze like a dumpling. Hey, buddy, are you feeling better? Is there anywhere you want to go? I'll take you there. Her way of waking people up is to slap them in the face. After 5 or 6 beatings, the other person finally woke up. He looked at her with a dull look and found that he did not recognize her. I'm just passing by. You seem to be in trouble. I can't take you home. You will scare my roommate to death. Do you have somewhere to go? I'll take you there, Daisy said, pointing at herself. Frank's eyes were dull and lifeless, as if he had no attachment to life. Daisy waited for a few seconds and found that he did not respond to her. She could only find a house that had not been occupied for a long time, unlocked the door, supported the future uncle, and stumbled in. The furnishings in the house were very old, and it was unknown whether the original owner had moved away or died. She put Frank on the bed, and he still did not say a word. We don't know each other. I can help you to this extent, then you can rest on your own, Daisy said as she opened the door and prepared to leave. She took a step with her left foot and then took it back. She looked through Frank's wallet. This guy may have been in the army for many years and had no concept of money. There was not even $1 in his wallet. I'm not rich either, so I'll give you 200. Don't think it's too little. Daisy was afraid that this guy would starve herself to death, so she reluctantly took out 200 from all her savings and stuffed it into his wallet. There was a lot of dust on the floor and table in the room. Theoretically, the original owner would not appear in a short time. Ordinary people need special care for colds and fevers, but Frank does not need to do that. He can recover on his own with the tough physique he has honed on the battlefield. He is a pure soldier king and does not need outsiders to worry about him. He returned to the rental house, turned on the computer and started to investigate. The internet only recorded that there was a firefight in Central Park and some bodies were seen. As for who the warring parties were and how many casualties there were, everything was unknown. Thinking about the tragic fate of the Punisher's family, Daisy sighed, practiced her abilities for a while, and fell asleep on the bed. Touching her wallet with only 500 left, she felt so poor that she couldn't fall asleep. While thinking about how the predecessors of the time traveler made their first pot of gold, she felt like she had forgotten something, and finally fell asleep in a daze. The next day, Daisy simply brushed her teeth, washed her face, ate bread, and gestured at the air with a fork. She really couldn't think of any profitable business. She had some software in her mind that could make money, but they all required costs, at least human costs. She didn't want to lock herself in a room and spend half a year typing code. That shouldn't be her lifestyle. As for the rest, she had no idea. Typing? There was no Harry Potter in this world, but she felt that even if she copied the original text, it might not be successful, not to mention that she couldn't remember the original text. Drawing comics of Superman and Wonder Woman next door. She didn't have the skill to draw either. She walked out of the room and opened the car door. The smell of blood in the car almost made her fall. She forgot to wash the car last night. This car is rented. Now, after one night, the smell is gone. The car must be returned, but it can't be returned like this. There is blood on the car. How can she explain it to others? Daisy scratched her head and decided to go wash the car after thinking about it. She definitely couldn't go to a regular car wash. She could only go to those car washes with gangster backgrounds. Searching her memory, she drove to a place called Valley's Taxi. This was the territory of the Russian mafia, responsible for painting, remodeling, and washing cars. Daisy covered her face. The probability of a conflict between the two sides was as high as 80. To be honest, she was not worried and was a little excited. But she was a little worried when she thought of weapons. She only had the anti-wolf stun gun left by her predecessor. She couldn't buy a pistol just to wash the car, right? That was too ridiculous. Deciding to adapt to the situation, she drove around Hell's Kitchen and finally drove into the Russian territory. This was an underground parking lot. Because it was daytime, there were not many people. Two people were talking in the middle of the venue. Daisy had seen one of them before. It was James Wesley, who represented Kingpin to purchase the land. This guy was still wearing a neat suit and glasses. His gentle appearance was in sharp contrast to the several burly men scattered around. Opposite him stood a thin man. The two were arguing in low voices. When they heard the sound of the car engine, they turned their heads and looked over curiously. The thin man motioned to his men to go over and take a look. A sturdy man walked to the side of the car and asked rudely, "What are you doing?" Daisy was a little speechless. It was obvious that she came at the wrong time. She could only say in a hoarse voice, "Wash the car."